Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today. We still have a couple of people coming in, but I thought just time to kick off. As you may have heard from that strange announcement, this session is being recorded. But if you have any questions, yeah, please do pop them in the Q&A box for Beth. Beth, can you give us a wave? And Beth will be able to answer some of these questions throughout the presentation. We'll also put some time at the end to answer any more questions that you have. But yeah, before crack on, I also just want to apologise if I sound incredibly congested. That's because I am incredibly congested, and I'm going to be drinking quite a lot of Lemsip throughout that to try to sort of to get through. But anyway, without further ado. So yeah, again, just a big thank you to all of you for joining us today and spending this hour with us. Before we jump in, just who exactly are we? So my name is Paul. I'm the sales director here at the Student Room, and my role is to work with universities across a number of different areas, but predominantly around recruitment marketing, brand awareness, brand building, and fundamentally just better understanding the needs of prospective applicants. My background, I've been working with HE for around 12, 15 years across a variety of media suppliers like the Student Room, but also ad agency side as well, like a Penna. And then I'll introduce you to Babs.
Hi there, I'm Barbara Bradshaw. I'm the Senior Market Research Consultant for TSR Insight, the Research and Insight team within the Student Room. I lead on all the research that we undertake for our clients, who are predominantly universities. And I'm also responsible for the research that we carry out internally, including the findings that we're going to be talking about today. Prior to joining the Student Room, I worked within a research and insight team at a university for 12 years. I'm a certified member of the Market Research Society, and TSR Insight are Market Research Society company partners. Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth Wiles. I'm the research manager at the Student Room. I'm also a certified member of the Market Research Society, and I work with Babs across a range of qualitative and quantitative research projects that we conduct. And as Paul mentioned, I'll be on hand on the chat and Q&A to answer any of your questions as they come through. Thank you.
Cool. So firstly, just a little bit about the Student Room. So for the last 20 years, the Student Room has been the UK's largest and most useful, trusted online student community. So across both the Student Room and our sister site, the UniGuide, we receive about 10 million visits every month from students all over the UK. That's ranging from year 8 all the way up to those looking at their sort of postgrad and early career opportunities. But it also covers a wide range of activity as well. So everything from what PC game do I want to buy, what best laptop, all the way through to how do I nail this maths exam. We're also just sort of a uniquely privileged position as well. So the sheer volume and the sheer sort of variety of discourse that happens on the site puts us in just a really unique position to be able to get quite a deep understanding, and this is where Babs comes in, of how students are really feeling, and that's across all ages and backgrounds. That side, so TSR, incredibly interesting and fascinating place as well, and the type of support that we give goes far beyond just the student experience side of things and going into everything around mental health, sexual health, relationships, how to cook a scrambled egg. This presentation, interesting. So myself and Babs delivered it at the Helloa National Conference 2 weeks ago, and checking at the hotel, we need to get some notes printed out. And the receptionist at the hotel was like, "Oh my God, you work for the Student Room, how amazing." I was like, "Oh, do you know it?" I was like, "Yeah, I was a member. I still use it now while I'm at university, but I started using it when I was doing my GCSEs, used it all the way through, decided what university to go to based on sort of chatting to people on the community. And now I like to sort of just still drop in as a student and give back." And it was a really interesting experience. And it's just, well, one, it's great to meet your fans. But two, just to sort of meet a real person who has just had their kind of like life changed by sort of the activity and the conversations and the support that you find within the Student Room. So yeah, it was just a really lovely moment amongst a fraught moment of trying to print out some notes. But yeah, so that's the Student Room. But what are we going to talk about today? So today's findings, they're from a few different sources, and we'll start with some information from our big autumn term survey. Within the presentation, we've concentrated on the 2023 cohort, although we also surveyed 2024 entrants. So we'll give a little bit of information about that year 12 audience as well and what they're thinking. We'll also share some insight from our monthly omnibus surveys, and these look at prospective students from 2023 and 2024 entry. So jump in, and these are the findings from the TSR surveys. But actually, before we do that, we do want to make this a little bit interactive. So firstly, and before we go on to the first findings, a question for you. We're going to do a little poll, so fingers crossed this works. What did our prospective 2023 applicants put top of their list when choosing a university? Well, that's a lot of voting going on. All right, I'll give it a couple more seconds. Okay, cool. That's an 87% completion rate. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to share your results, and then we'll share our results. So we've got course content very much at the top. And then really even actually between accommodation offered, student satisfaction, and university atmosphere. But yeah, I'll pass you on to Babs, and we'll go through what students actually told us.
Thank you. So we asked our 2023 entry prospective undergraduates what was important when choosing a university to apply to. Students could choose from a range of options and select as many as they thought were important, and course content, quite correct. As you can see, top 5, the top spot there. University atmosphere, student satisfaction, accommodation, and entry requirements were the top 5. Among those planning to move away, accommodation understandably was more likely to be important at 67%, which means that for students in your key recruitment zones further afield, then this becomes the second highest factor in their decision making. University atmosphere always ranks highly when we serve our community, which shows how it continues to be so important to give students the opportunity to get a more tangible image of what their life in a year's time might be like, where they might hang out and who they might hang out with. We also asked a similar question in our monthly omnibus survey, TSR Asks, in February last year, and the atmosphere or vibe on campus was the top response then, with course content still important, but 4th in the list. So that suggests that perhaps after application, the atmosphere on campus may become even more important in their decision making. And we always see prospective students valuing being able to speak to students currently on the course they'd like to apply for. And they perceive this as an unbiased way to get a view on what the experience is really like without that shiny official university collateral. It feels much more authentic, more genuine. And it also makes sense when you see how student reviews are of increasing importance too. So they want to know what they're actually getting and almost what lies beneath the hard work that all your marketing teams are consistently doing. But having said that, it's not just about opinion. Students also need the facts, and it's not surprising to see that information about course content is really highly rated there. So the big autumn term survey was in the field in October and November. And at this point in their decision making, 99% wanted information from universities. So yes, they want to hear from your current students for that all important peer review, but they absolutely want to hear from you too. The top 3 here reflect the elements that they were looking for in a university in the last slide. So in terms of the information that they're most likely to be looking for, they want information about the course and the accommodation. They also want information on the admissions process, so the flexibility of the entry requirements, what auditions or interviews will look like. Almost half wanted application and personal statement advice, and 2/5 wanted to know about work experience requirements. Almost 3/5 there wanted information on the university itself, so that's things like the facilities, the support, and the student union. And information about the city or campus was wanted by about half. So this is how you bring in that vibe element and make applicants feel something about the place that they'll call home for the next few years. So for some of you, understandably, the location is a USP. It's a really easy thing to talk about in your marketing. But for others, it's maybe more of a challenge that you have to work hard towards. But however you choose to communicate the location, the campus and the overall place, students really do need to hear about it. And I do understand there's a lot of data on these slides. They will be available afterwards to give you time to explore the detail. Paul?
Brilliant, cheers, Babs. Yeah, so just another quick round of family fortunes. On the flip side of this, what do we think the top reservations students may have had around attending university? Okay, amazing. We're so about 86% completions. That's brilliant. Of course, what have we got? We've got at the top, making the right university choice for me, future employability, really highly, and then a broad spread between not being able to attend, not being able to keep up with the workload, repaying student loan, and choosing a course that will meet my future career goals. So, what are they saying? Abs.
It looks like we might have had a bit of a trick question in that poll there, because the top thing was cost of living, which wasn't actually, sorry about that. So even though these are potential applicants, it's not a guarantee that they definitely apply for university. Almost all of them, 97%, had concerns about going to university. And as you can see here, the top 5 reservations that students selected at the time of this, oh, you can see here, the top 5 reservations that students had selected at the time of the survey. Perhaps unsurprisingly, given the current climate, that the cost of living is highest on the list, with 2/3 of respondents telling us they were worried about it. It's a really big topic, and we'll look at it in more detail on the following slides.
Yeah, and looking back at these top 5, 2 of these top responses are linked to the matter of finance or concerns about future employability, and obviously repaying their student loans appearing high on that list as well. It's worth saying that when we created this poll, we gave a really long list of students to select from. And we obviously didn't want to sort of freak people out by just putting some extremely negative things in there. But we really wanted to properly understand which of these areas were the most pressing concerns and could be barriers to application, and how we learn from that, but also how we can support you to sort of break down those barriers as well.
So with 3 of the 5 main concerns about university being linked to finance, it really is a huge area of focus for us as a sector to address. But they also need reassurance that they're making the right choice and that they will be able to cope. So our cohorts have had more of an insight into independent learning than students in the past. And we're repeatedly seeing them raise concerns about their ability to manage their workload at university and being able to motivate themselves. And their information needs frequently included questions about the support available at university. Given it's such an important issue, we also ran a separate survey to our community to share their thoughts and feelings about the cost of living crisis in more detail. The student room surveyed 642 prospective undergraduates in September. These were 2023 and 2024 entry respondents. And we found that nearly all of them, so 92%, were worried about the cost of living, feeling anxious, scared, or stressed. 43% were worried about whether they could afford to go to university at all. And more than half said they were likely to change their plans because of the cost of living, either choosing a university closer to home or living at home. And we asked them whether their parents or carers were influencing their decision making. 40% told us that they'd been encouraged to study closer to home or in cheaper areas. And 12% said their parents wanted them to defer or not attend university at all. So on results day this year, traffic to our apprenticeships and alternatives to university forums saw a year-on-year growth of 26%. So we may already be seeing that cost of living worries could be driving applicants to other pathways. And for those who do want to go to university, they want more information on scholarships and funding in general. The 1/4 of respondents didn't feel like they knew enough about how to access funding overall or what was available to them.
Right, thanks, Babs. Yeah, on the next slide, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into what we believe, or what students are saying that you as universities can do to help support them with cost of living. So yeah, everyone in this room, in this virtual room, is in the business of helping students. And we know that the cost of living is an issue which affects all students. But if you know that it's a significant concern for your market in particular, then here are a few ways that you could help. I'm just going to pause a second to just sort of have everyone give the chance to sort of digest some of these points. Yeah, one common theme here is that students really want to avoid unexpected costs. So yeah, everyone would do well to be as transparent and realistic as possible at what students expect to pay. And also prospective undergraduates, they need support, they need more support with managing costs and how they could go about supplementing their income. And they'll be looking to universities to help with this. So again, some of those stats, what do applicants need? 72% are asking for course essentials to be included within tuition fees. And that might be out of your gift to give, but it's certainly something that can be communicated more. Be more upfront about additional course costs, software, trips, etc. And then on the job side of things, help find part-time jobs or paid opportunities at the university, upfront about other costs, and then provide budgeting and cost-cutting information. I think almost all universities seem to have this capability, particularly around the budgeting and cost-cutting side of things. And it's great content to be able to sort of see through your CRM systems and help support your prospective students, and how you can take that prospective student through to conversion student by using some of these known pain points and turning it into really helpful content. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the impact the cost of living crisis may have on recruitment overall, but in particular for those students who are weighing up all of their options and have decided that yes, higher education is right for me and is the right pathway for them. So we also wanted to look at how open days will feed into this. So I'm sure you'll all agree that on-campus open days, they're one of the most impactful tools for conversion in your armory. When you're there on campus and you just get to really feel like what it'd be like to properly belong at this university, it's super powerful. But virtual events still have a place. And personally, and I think sort of the view of most people at TSR, we believe that they are pretty essential too. Again, it's going to sort of tell a little story, but when we talked about this point at Helloa, the Helloa conference was in Newcastle, and we had asked for a little show of hands about that have that impact. So we believe that virtual open days are super important to continue to have a diversity element to our recruitment. Yeah, so we look at these in the coming slides as well. But to start this section, we want to find out a little bit from you guys, particularly around virtual open days and whether you actually plan on continuing to do them, because we know that some people aren't. Okay, brilliant. So we've got 56% of people saying yes, 11% no, and 33% maybe. Yeah, that's really interesting. And so hopefully some of the information we'll go through on the coming slides about what students are really asking for is going to help you maybes make that decision, because it is a big strategic decision. And maybe with the no's, a possible chance to sort of reconsider and think about how virtual open days can still form a pretty compelling part of your recruitment arsenal. Okay, so when we asked those students who told us that they were not planning to attend any on-campus events, 3 main reasons came up: money, time, and distance. So if you recruit from further afield or are focusing on growing your recruitment pool into other regions, This can be quite tricky if virtual isn't an option, because those three things will be working against you. There are some really interesting and sort of quite great initiatives in the sector, which huge kudos to. So some universities do some really great things, if yours isn't already, which could be worth exploring. So there's a university in Yorkshire, which are offering to cover some of the costs of students who attend their open days if they meet specific WP criteria. University in Greater Manchester is offering up to £40 to any student who attends an open day who lives outside the Greater Manchester area. Now, of course, all of that adds up, perhaps less than the cost of not being able to recruit those students who might not be able to attend your events due to these three factors of money, time, and distance. So that's what they're telling us, but what are we hearing sort of verbatim? So again, this is some open comments. I'll give you some time to sort of digest these. But you can see some of the details from the students themselves, and money, time, distance, again, keeping up those three main barriers. So quite simple. I'm broke, man. The university I'm interested in are all outside of the city I live in, and thus it would be too expensive to travel all the way to an open day. I'm busy and I don't have transport. Universities are too far away, and I don't think my parents have the time to take me to see them or have the funds to buy public transport tickets for me to go to. Most of the universities doing my course are far, over 4 hours away, and I don't think visiting all the options necessary until I've chosen 5, which I will then visit to pick one. So yeah, you're seeing there again, time and time again, money, time, and distance are coming up as some of those major barriers. Babs.
Thanks. So when we conducted this research back in October, so most of the 2023 entry cohort that we spoke to, 84%, had already attended a virtual or an on-campus event. Only 16% hadn't attended either at that point. Around a third, 35%, had attended a virtual open day, and 76% had attended an on-campus event. 27% had attended both virtual and in-person events. And the response to these events was really positive. 90% of those who attended virtual events had found them useful, and that's actually slightly higher than the proportion who found virtual open days useful in 2021, suggesting that universities have now really fine-tuned their virtual open day offer, making these really positive experiences for prospective students. 98% of those who attended on-campus events found them useful, and I'm sure, again, it's really gratifying to hear the success of the return to on-campus open events, and also really reinforces how important those on-campus open days can be in information gathering and ultimately in university choice. These are really big numbers and a huge testament to the efforts that uni teams are putting into making these days interesting and useful for students. So we know that students considering higher education in 2023 found the events useful overall, but we also asked them what words they would use to describe the events they attended. Starting off first with virtual open days. The most frequently mentioned words to describe virtual open days were straightforward, interesting, and it's really great to see that the top 5 words were really positive, encouraging, organised, and easy, all up there. However, around the middle of the table, 24% described virtual open days as boring, not music to anyone's ears, I'm sure, but there are ways to make these a lot more interesting and personalised. And although it's reassuring, hopefully, to note that this percent is slightly down compared to October last year, when 30% described them as boring. So what do they want from virtual open days? Overwhelmingly, respondents wanted course information. Around half of the respondents mentioned course information as the key thing they wanted from virtual open days. And they want to know if it's worth them exploring it further. This included things like the course content, the module information, understanding what the course that they're interested in will be like at that university. After this, they wanted information about the university itself, so what it has to offer and why they should choose it. They also wanted application advice and information about entry requirements from virtual open days. And they still wanted to hear current student opinions, so gauge student satisfaction and get an insight into student life. And accommodation information was also wanted at this stage. And that comment at the bottom is interesting. The only reason I'd go virtual is because I can't access an in real life open day. So I need an in real life experience. Now using the same set of words to describe on-campus open days amongst those who've attended. Lots and lots of positivity here when describing the in-person events they'd attended. Interesting, encouraging and organised, all selected by at least around 2/3. And just 7% here describing them as boring, difficult or off-putting down at the bottom there.
Cool. So next we want to hear, sorry, maybe too much emphasis. So we wanted to ask what prospective students would find useful at on-campus open days. And predominantly what we're seeing here, they want to hear about the course directly, and they want to hear it from lecturers teaching the course, but they also want to hear from students currently studying the course. This comes up sort of time and time again with almost any bit of research that we do. It's just so important for students to meet other students. How you facilitate that, to have like a genuine conversation, again, can be quite difficult, particularly if a lot of people on campus at a particular time are brand ambassadors. Again, that might be seen through, but yeah, that kind of like real conversation between a prospective student and a current student is super important. But they also really want tours. Again, probably know this will be surprising to you. They want to tours of the campus. They really want to sort of see and have tours of the accommodation. And again, they want to hear about students and about university life and what goes on around the academic side of university. So perhaps understandably, given the commitment of time and money involved in an on-campus open day visit, prospective students would want a lot more than they wanted to get out of those events. And these comments are often linked. So most frequently mentioned was wanting to get an understanding of the atmosphere, what it feels like there to be as a student on campus in the city and on their course. Understandably, again, they want to see the accommodation and to learn more about the course, but this is perhaps less about the content and more about understanding the actual sort of like logistics of it, where it would be taught, the facilities they would use, the lecturers, and also just, again, current student opinions. Orientation, so orienting themselves was also an important part of an on-campus open day. So it's experience of the campus, the facilities, seeing them and working out where things are in relation to each other. And all of this just goes into just understanding the overall campus vibe. And finally, related to this is also seeing the city. So the location in general, distance between places, day-to-day travel requirements. And more generally, student life and university life information, for example, a day in the life or taster sessions were also mentioned. Again, applicant information was wanted, as was information on support and any extracurricular information. But yeah, again, the quotes here sort of describe it really well. Atmosphere of the campus, and if I can see myself living there, that kind of visualization of like, can I really see myself here? Course content, meeting professors, setting and feeling of uni and people there, accommodation and campus, what life is like there and how it will work. Starts to get very, very practical.
Thank you. So we looked at feelings towards virtual open days and on-campus open days separately, but going back to those lists of words describing the events, if we plot them both on the same chart, we can really see the difference in the strength of positive sentiment towards those on-campus open days. Those are the ones in purple. But that doesn't mean they're completely perfect. 26% found on-campus open days time-consuming, and 21%, so more than 1 in 5, found them stressful, compared to virtual open days at just 6%. Interestingly, though, very similar results for words which describe the logistics of the event. So in particular, straightforward, with around 40% selecting it for both, as well as similar results for easy and relaxed. And they still plan to attend more. The 1/3 plan to attend virtual open days in the future, and 55% plan to attend an on-campus open day in the future. 21% actually plan to attend both in the coming months, and that's obviously really great. But conversely, half hadn't attended any virtual open days and didn't plan to, and 20%, so 1 in 5, hadn't attended an on-campus event and didn't plan to.
Yeah, I think that 20% is such an interesting number, and particularly if we go back to the poll that we conducted with yourselves, the attendees, so 33% of you are unsure as to whether sort of continuing with virtual. Obviously 11% are deciding no, not to continue. That could lead to excluding around 20%, as Bab said, 1 in 5 of your prospective audience who have no intention of attending an on-campus event.
Thank you. So we then asked 2023 entry respondents when was the most appropriate time of year to host online and on-campus events, asking them to select points across the recruitment cycle when they felt these would be useful. So this chart shows the 2 academic years, starting with the autumn term of year 12 on the left there, going right up to the summer after year 13 on the right. This research took place in the autumn term of year 13, so that's around the centre of the chart. And understandably, there was significant interest in attending both online and in-person events at that point of time, which is, of course, in line with when the majority of on-campus open days do take place. There was also interest in attending over the summer between year 12 and 13. Interesting things to note on this chart at the beginning and the middle. So when respondents reflected back to the early stages of their decision-making cycle, significantly higher proportions wanted universities to host virtual open events, virtual open days in the first 2 terms of year 12. Then in the central section of the chart, summer year 12, over the holidays between year 12 and 13, and then in the autumn term of year 13, when the highest proportion of respondents wanted on-campus open days, there was also a similar level of interest in virtual events at that point. So we were asked recently whether virtual open days were dead, and in the poll suggested some universities were considering not running them. Perhaps not, perhaps we do need to keep going with virtual open days. From a university perspective, hopefully this chart is helpful in terms of targeting and comms for the different times of year. So in the autumn term, when the bulk of interest in both virtual and on-campus events will be the incoming cohort of year 13. If we look at the left-hand side of the slide, there's also interest from year 12s in attending particularly virtual events in the autumn term. In spring term, understandably, year 13s have submitted their UCAS forms, they're knuckling down to work. Virtual events appear to be more relevant, and in particular focusing on the future cohort in year 12s. In the summer term, the focus on both virtual and on-campus events was to year 12s, that's nothing new. But while events held in the summer holidays are often targeted specifically at a clearing audience, there appeared to be interest in summer events from those who've just finished year 12 and are about to go into year 13.
Great. So aside from on-campus and virtual open days, we also wanted to ask our audience about applicant visit days. So something that's really encouraging, the 70% plan to attend at least one applicant day, with a higher proportion, around 25%, planning to attend 2 applicant visit days. But among those who weren't planning to attend applicant visit days, I think this is one of the really interesting areas, is one of the main reasons for not doing so was because they felt they had no need to. Again, from a marketing and comms perspective, how do we create that need? Because it could be a super important way of being able to really refine that list of 5 down to that final one. And this includes both for those who had already attended university in question, but also those who hadn't. And I suggest the reasons for not wanting to go are very different. So for some that had already been to an open day, then seemingly received enough information there and then to make the decision. So that was part of their no need to go again, as they were a fully fledged applicant. However, for those who've never visited the university before, this no need statement is far more interesting. But again, unsurprisingly, costs and expense come up again here, but so too does a lack of awareness. So yeah, let's have a look at what students had to say about this in particular. So yeah, I don't know about them and I don't see the point, which is pretty interesting. Again, too expensive to travel there, time, distance, money. I think it respects attended sufficient open days at this point. Are we giving enough of a reason as to why applicant days are a different thing to open days and therefore you need to be attending? Don't know anything about them, and the universities I've applied to haven't told me about them. Again, that awareness piece, are we talking anywhere near enough about sort of this option for students? Perhaps.
Thank you. So we asked those planning to attend applicant visit days whether they felt the general open days before applying or the applicant visit days after receiving an offer would be more important when choosing a university. And respondents were divided. So slightly more than half felt open days attended before applying would be more important to them when choosing a university. So why are they attending applicant days and what do they want to get out of them? Lots of things were wanted from applicant visit days. On average, they were selecting more than 5 elements each from this multiple choice list. Hearing from students about university life was at the top of the list, and also hearing about the course directly from students currently on the course. They also want tours of the campus and the accommodation. So very similar to general open days, but it's more about picturing themselves there and really understanding what life will be like for them on that course. Where we did see differences compared to general open days, it was a greater interest at this point in hearing from students about aspects relating to being a student at that university. So hearing from students about the local area and nightlife, or about the well-being, but from students' perspective. There's also more interest in hearing about research at these applicant days. They're much more invested at this point, and it's about reassurance and picturing themselves there, making sure it's really right for them. So while there are a lot of similarities compared to general open days, there were also some subtle differences. Paul?
So yeah, at applicant days, respondents, as Bab said, wanted that more detailed information, particularly in terms of the course. They wanted to understand the modules they could choose from and the structure, the timetable, whether there's anything they could do to pre-prep to prepare for the course. Some wanted more or extra information at this stage. They wanted to see whether it was the right choice for them. And if we think back to those initial reservations we talked about right at the very beginning, about whether I should attend university at all, and whether they're making the right choice. They want to know whether they would fit in, would they feel right, and what it's like to really be a student on that course at that university. And they also wanted to understand what the people around them would be like. So the lecturers teaching the course, the current students, but also what the other offer holders on that course may be like as well. So again, let's look at some of those comments. Yeah, how people that look like me are treated. Am I going to fit in? If I actually see myself studying there, is this course in this university the right one for me? Almost that final point of ticking that box and being, yes, this is right. A more personalized version of an open day, meeting potential classmates. It's super interesting. Gaining more information that may not have been supplied on an open day. And what's the vibe of the uni and my courses like in particular? Like personalities of the tutors and the lecturers. It's really getting into detail here of just not just understanding the university and the campus, but sort of the more kind of human interactions that will come with being part of your institution. Okay, so that is everything. We'll go to a couple of key takeaways and then got quite a few questions within the Q&A, but also just open this up for a wider Q&A as well. But I think if we look at those key takeaways, so events need to be standalone. Each may be the only time that a prospective student visits, so be it virtual open day, physical on-campus open day, or applicant open day, have them as standalone events and don't expect that everyone will attend all of those events. Again, when we sort of asked these questions at Helloa, it was really interesting to how many people attended an applicant open day but had attended no other events at that institution, and that was their first experience. They also need to be subtly different for those who do attend multiple events and recognize where people are in the cycle and what they're trying to get out of it. I think where we've gone wrong with sometimes with virtual events is that we've tried to fully replicate the on-campus experience, while they are something unique and distinct and serving a separate purpose. And if we start viewing them through that lens, as opposed to sort of the direct comparison to an on-campus event, then we can start seeing where they really fit in. So yeah, virtual open days focus very early on the decision-making cycle, and really great for providing sort of detailed course information. General open days showcase the university, the atmosphere, and that orientation side of things. Applicant days get in the detail, really focus on that course information, the people side of things, and ensuring that applicants have a real sense of belonging. And yeah, the final one is speak to us at the student room team. Yeah, we have as I said before, we have a uniquely privileged position to be able to sort of have a great team engaging and interacting with a sort of a vast array of students on a daily basis. We have a wonderful insights team producing sort of great research that helps us. But the main purpose is that we want to be able to help you to help students, because that's what, as a business, we're here to do. We're here to help students. So the more that you guys engage with us and we can sort of help support you, yeah, the more that we know that will cascade down into helping young people, which is what we're all about. Great. I'm going to stop screen sharing and we'll jump to Q&A. Brilliant.
Hi. Thank you, everybody, for putting such great questions in the chat. I do have a couple that I said we'd answer live. So one of the questions I have is there any benefit to making the open day a different experience to your normal day, i.e. putting on food stalls, music and other entertainment, which is obviously not just what the campus is like all the time, or should you stick to focusing on a true to life experience of attending the university?
Perhaps do you take that one?
It's not something we've actually we've asked about. They certainly want to experience a vibe on campus, and anything that you can do to make that really exciting and fun vibe on campus is going to help. Obviously, it's something we could potentially ask about in future surveys, because I think it'd be interesting to see whether they recognise that these things aren't here all the time. That's something we can certainly explore in the future and can add. I think, yeah, anything that makes it fun and a positive. I mean, they know that it's not necessarily a real life day, and they know, especially if they're going on the weekend, that it's not as busy as it would potentially be the rest of the time. So that they do know and see through these things, but I don't have any statistics on it, but it's certainly something we could explore in the future. So.
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic as well, especially for summer open days when a lot of undergraduates won't actually be on campus themselves. But yeah, getting an understanding of that atmosphere and that vibe is so important. So I suppose it's a balance between having that atmosphere and also the experience being authentic. But yeah, such an interesting topic and something we can certainly look to explore in future surveys. Thank you. Okay, next question now. So I've got another question. What are your recommendations for creating a clear distinction between open days and applicant days? And is there a clear difference in what students would expect from these?
Yeah, I'll jump in a little bit here, then pass to yourself, Babs. So I think, firstly, sometimes recognize the fact that you will have some people who have never been to another event before, and possibly maybe some people who haven't actually even applied, which again is something that came up loud and clear when we were talking about this in Hello. I think one institution said around 60% of attendees was sort of hadn't actually applied, and is even higher for sort of people who hadn't attended any other events. So you kind of need to have that I was going to say secondary, but it probably almost becomes it sometimes a primary audience in mind. But what we're seeing from the insight is that people do want a different experience. And if we think about some of the barriers that people had, so one of the main comments was like, I don't need to, I've got everything I need. But we also know that isn't true. You haven't got everything you need. And what people are asking for, have an expectation from applicant days, is it just gets that little bit deeper. Then what does that mean for sort of yourself running those events when you have those multiple audiences? Can you stream people off in different ways? And essentially it's one day, two experiences. That might be something that needs to be looked at, but that core differential seems to be just a going deep. So lecturers really meeting other students, getting the chance to sort of meet other applicants as well, to the people that I'm going to be studying this course with.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say like the key differences I noticed from the 3 event types were it was all about course information at virtual events. They wanted to, is it worth me even bothering to keep looking at this institution? From general open days, it was about working out where everything was. So how far will I be walking from my accommodation to my campus, and what are the facilities like, just orientating themselves. And then the applicant days were just about, is this for me? Will I fit in here? Who will I be with? It's much more personal, and they want more and deeper information if possible. So they wanted to see who's going to be teaching me, as Paul said, who am I literally going to be spending my time with? These other applicants that I'm walking around with, and these current students and these teachers.
Great, thank you so much. So sort of moving on around course content, I have another question here. Do we know how they'd like to access their course content? So is it on a website, prospectus, emails, or videos?
I think
Possibly one for a future survey.
I feel like we've asked that, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I know video content is very popular at the moment, and in general, but I think it's just multiple different layers. Different people will want it in different ways, and that's what we generally see. Some people will the detailed course information online, and some people want verbally through it.
Yeah, even in terms of the prospectus itself, there's a split of respondents who want that digitally, who want a paper version, and I think there'll just be a range of what students want across all sort of the media platforms as well. But yeah, definitely something we can explore in a future survey.
And taster sessions are also a good way to sort of provide some of that information as well, because they can see what it will actually be like to be taught on that course, that kind of course information as well.
Great, thank you. So we've got another sort of question around campus tours now. Do we have any research relating to weekly campus tours? I don't think that's something we've researched before, but again, really interesting topic, and something that we can certainly look at in the future there.
Yeah, I mean, we're running a number of surveys for sharing with clients, and we'd absolutely love it if clients would sort of tell us what their key questions are. Things like campus tours, we can add some questions in and find out those answers for them. So yeah, if there's anything that we want to make these surveys that we're doing for our clients and for you more useful for you, so let us know what it is that we should be asking. Please do.
Great, thank you. We do have a couple of questions in the chat as well around cost of living. So as the cost of uni is so important, this attendee would just like some ideas about how this could be added to the open day experience.
Cost of living information. I suppose it's that clarity that we were talking about before. It's being upfront about what the extra costs are going to be on the course, if there are any, or ways that without it's such a balance, isn't it? Because you don't want to scare people off, but if people do need that information, they want to know what support will be there for them, and also just making sure there aren't hidden costs. They aren't going to be surprised by something, and you know, people will talk about it. If someone enrolls on a course and suddenly gets hit with a big bill for a field trip that they weren't expecting, I know that's likely to happen, but that's an example. You know, they'll talk about that will reflect in negative word of mouth potentially. So the more upfront and honest we can be about any extra costs, the better. They want the unpolished version, and they'll get it. So it's worth being upfront about those.
Yeah, in our cost of living summary that we did find that 70% did want that upfront information about any additional costs for their course. So that could be, you know, the software, the trips, anything sort of unexpected that wouldn't be necessarily included in their fees. And I think as well, it's sort of those optional trips as well that they might want to go on, just giving that information right up front as well.
Yeah, and anything that can be rolled into the cost, you know, would be great to do so. Or explain, you know, if they do need to, if there are other options, what are they? So they don't have to buy textbooks, or they don't have to buy, you know, just be able to tell them what they don't have to buy as well as what they do have to buy would be useful.
I think also it doesn't have to be just open days. It's how does it go across sort of all your wider cons? So talk about the CRM side of things and be able to sort of share lots of content and how to sort of budget effectively. Again, that kind of practical side of things could flow into sort of differentiator for applicant days, because every city is different and has different sort of expenses to it. So a practical way of like, all right, this is how you set a budget for Liverpool. This is how you set a budget for London. It's going to be sort of it's going to be vastly different.
Right. Thank you. I've had another question. So around cost of living, about whether you think this will be particularly problematic for London-based universities, and whether people are likely to choose a competitor outside of the capital. Now, I don't think we've asked about that specifically, but we do know from our previous research that 56% were looking to choose cheaper accommodation. So, for example, that might be like a shared bathroom. And we also found that 14% said that their parents or guardians were influencing their university decision by choosing unis in cheaper locations. And we also had quite a few, so like 27% saying they'd stay closer to home to reduce travel costs, and 21% to live at home to study at a local university. Do you have any thoughts on that? That's our Paul.
Yeah, I was thinking sort of, particularly with the sort of their push to stay at home. I think London is in a fortunate position that it is just so population dense that I would say this, I think, and this is also what I feel anecdotally, is that the problem is actually the other way around. That so if London students stay in London, and it's such an important recruitment city for every other institution, that sort of the impact is felt actually more on regional universities because it's harder to get people out. And be that from a sort of cost of living perspective, from sort of just a desire to stay at home to save money, but also going back to that time distance money challenge going to open days. So if you're London based and you want to look at an open day in Manchester, that's £140 train ticket. I think the challenge for like London is I believe anyway insulated just because of the population density, but we're seeing it more with regional institutions that rely on London students to come out.
Thank you very much. So the next question we have here is there any data on parent or guardian influence over the decision-making process? So this person says that they're considering hosting separate events for applicants and guests at their next event.
I don't think we've asked specifically about parents at open days. We did include some questions in the cost of living summary from parents, and we spoke about those briefly, but the cost of living summary is available. We can share that afterwards. Yeah, it's a tricky one with parents, isn't it? Because actually, obviously, the student is the customer. It's the student is the most important person there, but equally I've attended many open days myself, and it's often, not always, the parent that does the talking, and sometimes you actually want to speak to, you almost want to separate them really to get the opportunity to talk to the student on their own. It's not something that we've focused on in an open day survey so far. We can certainly ask if parent events or if specific talks for parents would be of interest. Whenever I've looked at it briefly in the past, a few years ago, it was sort of a little bit, well, what are you telling my parents that you wouldn't tell me? It's a slight concern on that, but something we can include in future surveys to see what whether that's changed, whether there's anything interesting there.
Yeah. I think from previous surveys we have quite a lot of data on are parents an influencer, and I think the short answer is yes. But what they require from open days, no. But again, there's a lot of conversation around sort of exactly what you're looking to do here, which is sort of split them off and give them sort of different experiences. I think it gives the student or prospective student more time to have that real life conversation again with sort of other existing students while their parents not around, while also that parent might want a particular experience around the safety of the city and what you do for sort of the well-being side of things.
So parents are massively influential without even realizing it, because if a parent isn't able to take a child to an open day and the child can't go on the train or whatever, then they've had a huge influence on that person's likelihood to select that university without even going, really. So that they can, absolutely hugely influential, sometimes without realizing.
Great. Thank you. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have time for all the questions, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for sending those in. It's been really interesting to read them all. And we will look at the other questions and see if we can include them in surveys, and obviously share the findings with you in the future as well. But yeah, if you have any ideas for questions or anything like that, then please do get in touch with us. I've also had quite a few questions about whether the recording will be shared after the webinar, and yes, it will be, so you'll be able to look it back and have a look at the data in the slides and things.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, all. And if we haven't been able to answer any of your questions, please do just send them through on an email, and we'll try to sort of just respond back individually, or we'll think about how we can merge some of them into our monthly surveys, because there are some brilliant questions here and we wouldn't want to miss them. Great. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.